Hello, this is wmpyr. Here to talk about two styles, essentially. I want to compare the two and just share with you my 2 cents, okay? The two styles is basically Kalaripayattu and Kickboxing, okay? And Kalaripayattu being a style, an ancient style from India. It is a traditional martial art, and kickboxing, of course, you know, Muay Thai kickboxing. There is the famous organization K1. Yeah, so to compare the two, right? Now, if you have a Kalari guy and you have a kickboxer and they fight, right? My money is going to be on the kickboxer. And this is, I'm not saying this to disrespect the Kalari person, right? To me, Kalari, what little I know of it, is a wonderful style and I think is very effective and in many ways is very similar to Filipino martial arts that I train in, which is Kali, Escrima, and Arnis. Okay, so to me, it's much closer to that. Um, Kickboxing, on the other hand, is not a traditional martial art like Kali, Eskrima, Arnis, or Kalaripayattu. Kickboxing, as we know, is a combat sport. And what they do in combat sports is it's a sport, so it's all about performance. And you're gonna fight. You compete, you fight. It's a match. It's very, very competitive. You have to be athletic. There's no way that you could go in the ring and not be athletic. It is careers can be made, careers can be broken. Uh, it is intense injuries because injuries happen all the time in sports. It's just part of the program. All right. If you're talking about fighting, I would say something like kickboxing, a combat sport, is the way to go. If you're interested in fighting, if you're interested in becoming a good fighter, go learn a combat sport. Period. Period. That's the best style for you to do is to go do a combat sport. And there's lots to choose from. And that which one is the best or whatever, that's your preference. If you like kickboxing, you might like striking more, or you might prefer grappling, or you might like both. That's up to you. And there's styles for all of that, all of your preferences. There's plenty out there, but you want to choose a combat sport if fighting is your interest. Now, for self-defense, if you fight, you're gonna end up in a lot of legal trouble. Period. It's not really legal for us to go and get into fights. You could get sued. I mean, there's lots of problems that can happen. Witnesses can say, yeah, this person assaulted this person. You're gonna end up in jail, or you're gonna end up in court. It's going to be very costly. It's going to be a very bad experience. Even if you're a good fighter, you can end up in a lot of hot water. There is a consequence. We have to understand that. When you're young and dumb, you don't care about that. You go, hey, I just want to be a good fighter. I want to be the best fighter. And you walk around town like you could just beat anybody. And this is not very smart. But real life, there's consequences. And the older you are, I think you start to understand that. If you do combat sports, you're going to learn fighting skills and you'll probably become a better fighter that way, but the best fighter that you possibly can be through combat sports. But once again, you're gonna have injuries if you do it seriously. If you don't get injuries, to me, it's like you haven't done it seriously enough. You're gonna get injured big time. And then on top of that, like I said, if you walk around going, hey, I'm a fighter, and you have that attitude, if someone messes with you, you fight back and you use those skills, you're going to be in big trouble. So then, is it really smart for self-defense? Is it a good idea? I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm not telling you guys not to train in it. What I am saying is that that is not the answer, right? I do think that it is part of the answer because in a self-defense situation, you might have to fight your way out in order to escape, in order to survive, in order to protect yourself. You might have to fight a little bit. And if you don't know how to fight, you cannot get out then. You can't escape, you can't survive. It's very natural, the kickboxing, and if you include MMA, the wrestling, all that stuff, the boxing and the wrestling, it's very, very natural. It happens all over the world. It happens historically for thousands of years. Humankind, that's what we do. Without weapons, we do boxing and wrestling. That's just our thing. We do stand-up striking, and then we clinch, and then we go to the ground. That's just part of the way we fight. And yeah, you need to know it for sure, for sure. Now the Kalari and the Filipino martial arts, that comes in once you know how to fight. If you don't know how to fight and you just do Kalari or you just do FMA, um, what you are is you're part of the tradition because those are traditional martial arts. They pass it down. That's all you are. You're just a vehicle to pass the knowledge, whether you understand it or not, whether you could really use it or not use it. You learn the knowledge and now you pass down the knowledge. That's what a tradition is. You're just part of that lineage. That's all it is. It doesn't mean you can fight. It doesn't mean anything other than you are passing the knowledge down. You are part of the lineage. You are part of the tradition. You're part of the library. That's all that it is. And for that moment, you're holding in knowledge. Like I said, you're like a book. And whether you could apply it or not, it has nothing to do with that. Therefore, I recommend that you do a little bit of kickboxing training, a little bit of boxing, a little bit of wrestling, a little bit of jiu-jitsu, MMA stuff. I do recommend that kind of stuff. Judo, sambo, any of those combat sports I think is very, very good. But the reason why I say a little bit is because A is those are sports. They're injury prone. You don't want injury. I don't want injury. Getting injured kind of beats the purpose. You're supposed to be protecting yourself. So if you're getting injured in practice and stuff, to me that's not smart at all. Therefore, for a lot of fighters, it's worth it. It's worth it for their careers. It's worth it to get injured in order to become stronger. And for a normal person like me, it's not worth it at all. It doesn't make any sense for me to get injured, whether it's micro damage or macro damage. I don't want any kind of brain injury, even if it's just like one or two concussions. I don't want that. I don't want organ damage, even if it's micro. Those add up. Yeah, and I definitely don't want to be peeing blood, because that's the kind of thing you're going to deal with if you spar full contact on a regular basis. And that's what fighters do. So, of course, they're super tough and they're super athletic. Is it worth it? I don't think so. I don't think it's worth it at all. But that being said, they know how to fight. They are the best at fighting. In my opinion, I want to get as close as possible to that. I want to be as close as possible to an MMA fighter, a boxer, a wrestler, a Muay Thai fighter, without doing the full what they do and get injured and get all kinds of damage. So I want to get as close as possible. And yeah, if I do spar with them, full contact and everything, would I become a better fighter? For sure. Like I said, to me, it's 100% not worth it. And that is where something like Kalari comes in. And a full contact fighter would watch the way they train and go, they're just doing choreography. That's like theatrical. That's fake. They would look at it that way. And the Kalari people look at the MMA people and see the way they're training and go, they're getting injured. They're they're by the time they're 50, they're gonna have trouble doing normal things. Maybe even before that, by the time they're 40, they're already injured and their body's not healthy and the health is just gonna decline. So they're going, what are they doing? It doesn't make sense. And I have to be, to me, the traditional martial arts people, I'm 100% with them. It makes sense to me. It's not worth it to damage your body like that for the purpose of becoming a better fighter. If you spar full contact, you're going to damage your body. If you spar full contact, you will become a better fighter, but you will get injured. That's the catch 22. And once again, for me, that is not worth it. So choreography training, that is the next best thing, especially with weapons. With empty hand, people get super hurt. Now imagine with weapons. There's no way. Even if you wear protective gear with weapons, it's just unthinkable to me. So the way the Kalari people, the way the Filipino martial arts people, they train with choreography, it makes sense to me. That is the next closest thing, because if you do full contact, you're going to get injured big time. And the only way to get better is to get as much training as possible. You need repetitions. Any boxer knows this. Any kickboxer knows this. Any grappler, any wrestler, they all know this. You need repetitions. So to get repetitions safely, you do choreography. That is the safest way to do it, and still make it as close as possible to reality without going, let's just go spar full contact. Let's just go at it. It is this next smartest thing. In fact, it's the smartest thing to do. Now, that being said, if that's all you've done and you've never experienced full contact at all, or never experienced a little bit of chaos in your training, then that is problematic, because in real life it's going to be super dynamic, it's going to be super chaotic, and you might get overwhelmed and you might freeze. That's why in the training, even in choreography training, we need to introduce chaos in there. We need to introduce some instability. And yeah, um, as well as aggression and force, but all that needs to be controlled, because injury is the biggest enemy. So I hope that makes sense. That's just my point of view. And this is pretty much the reason why I train in both traditional styles and combat sports. And there's actually one more missing. That is the tactical stuff. That's number 3. So to me, every style can be divided into those 3. Now some cross over, but definitely like something like sumo wrestling. If you look at sumo wrestling, it is traditional without a doubt, but it's also a sport because it's super competitive. It is a competition. It's a tournament, right? Which one is it then? It is mega traditional, but at the end of the day, the tournament part, the competition is the main thing. That's why sumo, to me, I would have to say it's more combat sport than anything, but it's definitely also has a very strong traditional aspect. That's kind of like the way you could view any style you want and look at them in those 3 different ways: the traditional, the sport, and then the tactical. Okay. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.